Okay guys, today's video is going to be about right to repair, but we're not talking about it at the state level like we normally do. We're talking about the federal level. So in this video, I'm going to cover the bill that is currently in the House of Representatives. Yes, there is a right to repair bill in the House of Representatives right now. And I'm going to talk about how to write your representative and your senator about right to repair. I'm not going to give you like a blanket letter of, hey, fill out this letter and fill in the blanks and mail it to them. That's just, I don't believe in that. I feel like, for the most part, they just shred those things or use them as a tally mark and don't really respond to them. And you want them to respond to you, so that way that opens up dialogue for you to write a second letter and so on. But yeah, we're going to get into that. Let's first look at the bill. So it's pretty short and sweet. I'm not going to read it in its entirety, but we'll go over some of the main points of it. Okay, so here is the bill in its entirety. So it's HR 4006. Or the Fair Repair Act. That's the official title for it. So the bill, pretty short, so it's probably 3 or 4 pages if you printed it out. Not really sure. But it's a very short, written in pretty plain English, easy to understand. So yeah, the title of it is the Fair Repair Act. Remember, on this channel, I don't like to refer to right to repair as legislation itself. I like to be distinct and talk about the particular laws, like the Fair Repair Act is this one, or in New York you have the Digital Fair Repair Act. So I don't like to use the term right to repair as legislation. And the reason for that is because right to repair is definitely an ideology, it's a mindset, it's a philosophy. So right to repair is much more broad than what these laws are. So I just want to be clear on that. I get a lot of people that disagree with that sentiment, but really right to repair itself is not legislation, and we should distinct that. So that way, if somebody has a view on right to repair that doesn't fit into the framework of one of these laws, that doesn't make them inherently wrong. It just means that they are talking about their feelings, their ideology of right to repair. And they're not wrong, and they should be included in the discussion. So that's something I wanted to get out of the way here in the beginning. So let's take a look at it. So pretty much what it sums up to exactly what we are asking. So take a look at Section 2, Point A is general requirements for digital electronics equipment sold or used in the United States. An original equipment manufacturer shall make available for the purpose of diagnostic, maintenance, or repair of such equipment to independent repair providers or owners of such digital electronics. The equipment manufactured by or behalf of or sold otherwise supplied by the original equipment manufacturer in a timely manner and on a fair and reasonable terms. Documentation, 1. Parts, 2. Tools, 3. Inclusive of any update to information or embedded software. So that puts the firmware available also, because it says embedded software. So the embedded software is the firmware on the chips. This is something I designed, and if anybody asked for the firmware for it, I'd be more than happy to give it to them. No one's going to need it because nobody else has this circuit board other than the few people I've sent samples of it to. But yes, so the embedded software is the firmware on the chips. So that is a very important distinction that you're not seeing in a lot of these bills. They are not including that portion. And yes, we have our documentation, we have our parts, and we have our tools being made available. This is pretty much everything everybody's asking for. This bill is great, in my opinion. And it goes into some other details. There are some loopholes in here, and there's some things that are pretty vague. It is hard to define what is a timely manner. How long are you going to define what a timely manner is? And how long are these manufacturers going to have to make this stuff available for? And lastly, what is a fair and reasonable term? So that something that would need further definition, but that's not something that would need to be defined in the law. That is something that needs to be defined in case law. For the most part, you will see many bills, laws, and such have these kind of vague things that are then later determined in case law. And there may already be case law in effect that covers what those exact terms mean. I'm not a legislator, I'm not a lawmaker, I'm not an attorney, so that's something that I don't know, but at first reading of the bill, it does seem kind of vague there for me. So two other important things to note are some of the limitations and non-applications. So a couple of things. So it does not apply to medical devices, and it does not apply to motor vehicles. So non-application to motor vehicles or motor vehicle equipment manufacturers. So GM is not going to be forced, So GM is not going to be forced to give me, the how to write to this chip, which this is a 2016 GM instrument cluster that, I can't swap these between vehicles without programming it with proprietary tools. There are some shady tools from Eastern Europe that can program it, but other than that, you're kind of stuck with paying for the manufacturer tool. But they do give it at a reasonable cost. I would argue that GM's tools that they do provide are a reasonable cost. But yeah, just pointing that out there is motor vehicles are not included, while we do have some right to repair laws that somewhat apply in what we do here on this channel in automotive. It doesn't directly apply because most of the automotive right to repair bills don't go down to the circuit board level. So we're kind of left in a gray area here in the automotive world, but still super exciting to see this bill. And yes, medical devices aren't included, which kind of sucks because the medical repair field, the FTC's been really clear that there's no evidence that third-party repair does a poor quality compared to the original manufacturers on this kind of stuff. So kind of sucks to see medical devices not included. I would really like to see it included in the final draft of this bill, but I understand I understand the mentality behind it. It's just wrong, is what I'm saying. I understand the fear of having independent repair technicians work on your medical devices. However, there is no evidence to say that independent repair does a poor quality of repair on medical devices. That's what I'm trying to say here. Protection of trade secrets. Nothing in this act shall be construed to require original manufacturers to divulge trade secrets as defined in Section 1839, Title 18 of the United States Code, to an owner or independent repair, except as necessary to provide documentation, parts, tools at a fair and reasonable term. So that one I find to be kind of vague. I would love to see some clarification in here. I feel like if the courts were to get involved in this, they would be a little bit more broad on that protection of these trade secrets. And unfortunately, a lot of manufacturers like to argue that their documentation is a trade secret. So are we going to allow documentation to be protected as a trade secret or not? Because if you do allow documentation to be protected as a trade secret, then we are going to get nothing out of this bill. This bill is going to have no teeth in it to actually get anything done, because that is what we need as repair technicians. However, currently, whenever we ask anybody for any of this documentation, they say, sorry, we can't give it to you because it's a trade secret. Take Hacko, for example, and they're very publicly stating that we will not give you documentation to our 40-year-old design because it's a trade secret, because we still continue to use that same design today. Actually, I believe that was 20 years old, but still, nonetheless, they hide behind the it's a trade secret on any time anybody asks for the stuff. So those are kind of my two main issues with the law, but I think it's an amazing bill, and I'm really happy to see it being discussed at Congress. Even if it doesn't get passed, it's a huge step to even have it being discussed versus silent and not discussed. Okay, so now let's talk about how to write a letter to your representative and your senator to hopefully get them on board with this bill, or at least to open the dialogue and have them interested in it. So you really have two main options. You can write a paper letter or you can write an email. They're done differently, but not terribly differently. So I'm going to discuss how to write a paper letter, because that is what I did for this. I'm writing paper letters, putting a stamp on them, and mailing it to them in hopes of getting a response. While I was in the military, I actually had to write a letter to my representative over an issue I was having, and I got a response from a paper letter. So that biases me to paper letters work. Now, be aware that the responses you're getting are their staff and not really them for the most part. But that's okay, because their staff is who puts everything in front of them and lets them know, hey, these are the topics that your constituents are interested in and whatever. So I would much rather get a response from a member of their staff than no response at all. It's my take on it. I mean, they are always a wealth of knowledge in giving you resources to contact after the fact too. They generally don't just give you a response of, oh, thank you for your interest, and that's it. They will generally point you in the right direction to try to get something solved. So, like for my example with the issue I was having in the military, they pointed me in the direction of resources that I had already extinguished in the military before stepping in. So yeah, they point you in directions of resources available to you. So if say they go, hey, this isn't really a Senate level issue, let me point you to the House of Representatives, which is where this law is. So if you were to write your senator about that, that's probably what response you'll get. But I'm writing both. I am writing both my senator and my representative on this issue. So that is just something to be aware of. But they might also point you to, hey, you know, this particular topic you're talking about isn't even up for discussion in Congress, so talk to these other resources that are available to discuss it. And they may be ignorant to the fact that right to repair is even in Congress, so you might have to correct them on that. And I will show you a letter one of our viewers from the channel got from their their representative for their state that was completely incorrect. I'm not putting that representative on blast or their staff member. They probably were just ignorant to this, because we only have two co-sponsors on this bill right now. Well, we have the sponsor and the co-sponsor. There's only two. There is a Democrat from New York who is the sponsor of the bill, and there is a co-sponsor that is also a Democrat from California. So we should be aware that it's currently got Democratic support. This bill should definitely have Republican support as well, because in the polls, right to repair is supported by Republicans by a higher majority than it is by Democrats for some reason. But it is still very much so supported on both sides. It is definitely a hot ticket item that is not partisan. And so that's really the point we should be making is, hey, I understand that you're a Republican, so that's my representative's a Republican. I'm going to state to him, I understand you're a Republican. This is not a Republican issue or a Democrat issue. This is a everybody issue, and you need to reach across the aisle and make this bill pass, is kind of how I wrote it. So we'll take a look at what I wrote, and then we'll talk about why I wrote it the way I wrote it. So I'm not going to read it verbatim, but I will post it somewhere below. I might post it in the Facebook group as a file if I don't post it in the description of the video. So if you're not a member of the Facebook group, it is Automotive Repair Technicians on Facebook. But yeah, so this is my letter. All is what I have redacted is my address, my phone number, and my my school email. I used my .edu email instead of my Gmail account just because I thought it was a little more professional. But yeah, so basically what I wrote, and I'll read a little bit of it, but not the whole thing. I said, as a constituent, a veteran, and a repair technician, I'm writing you to urge you to support the Fair Repair Act, HR 4006. So I do recommend, if you are going to write a letter on this, to start out with pretty much this exact thing. You want to be clear in the beginning of your letter of who you are and what you want from them. Is really what you want to open up with is, hey, I'm one of your constituents. I live in your voting district. This is my background. So I'm a veteran, or I'm a repair technician, or whatever. I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, whoever. You give them like a who you are and why you're writing them. Just open up with that. So then you can kind of get into like the meat and potatoes after that. So I stated right to repair needs to be legislatively supported. We all know that there are some laws out there for right to repair, such as Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act, but we need more, and we know we need more, and that's the whole point of this. I put in some facts in here. I sprinkle in some facts here and there into my letter, so that way I can back up what I'm saying. So next part I'm going to discuss of my letter is right to repair is a nonpartisan issue with massive support and popularity. A Data for Progress poll in 2020 shows overall support, which means everybody, a 71% support with Republicans at 76%. And I included the Republican number specifically because my representative is a Republican. And then I also put in the opposition number too, because the opposition number is not 1-to-1 of, compared to that, because you also have the I don't know or I don't care people in there. So yeah, it only had a measly 8% opposition from Republican front. Now that 8% probably didn't even know what they were opposing, in my opinion. You probably have a 1% opposal in reality, and that's because it's the top 1% that are making money off of this that want to do that. So then I sprinkled in some more facts down here. We have the first of all, that the White House publicly supports right to repair, and you can see that in his executive order. And then I put in that the FTC voted unanimously to support right to repair and released a report called Nixing the Fix. This report was released directly to Congress, and it's a discussion of right to repair. I sprinkled in some facts of companies that are offenders here, just to put a face to the enemy on this letter, or the opposition. Then I kind of just gloss over what you might be hearing from the opposition and why you should be skeptical of it. And then down here, I again reiterate why I'm contacting him. So I say again, I open up the last paragraph with, I am urging you to make Florida be remembered for being champions of the people. I want him to support right to repair, and right to repair is a law for the people. It's not a law for big corporations. Big corporations aren't going to like this. It's going to be painful for them, but it supports the people, and that's what I said. So don't be silently complicit with big tech crushing our freedom of repair. It is worth reaching across the aisle to support this bill, and I add that in there because he is a Republican, it's a Democrat-led bill at the moment, and that's kind of how things have become, is it's scorched earth between the two parties. But this is one of those times it is necessary to reach across the aisle, get along, and let's get this law passed, is my opinion on this. And then I left the statement open-ended here with, I'm looking forward to hearing from you and assisting in any way possible, leaving it open-ended for them to contact me back and let me know, how they feel about it. Do they have more questions I can answer? And they generally will write back, because remember, this is not actually the representative or the senator writing you back. It is their staff members, their interns. Those are the people writing, and they generally do write back. So that's kind of what I wanted to go over on the letter of my letter. So yes, I did play the, hey, I have a YouTube channel, but I'm not playing it as, hey, I'm this big influencer. I even said I have a modest following. I'm not this big fancy YouTuber making millions of dollars. I do repairs. I make money off of doing repairs. I like to teach other people how to do repairs, and I like to talk about right to repair on YouTube. So I just wanted to give them that background on me. So this isn't me like flexing on them, like, look at me, I'm this big bad YouTuber. No, it's literally just mentioning it as a, hey, this is what I do. So I got this pulled up for you guys. So this is a apa.org letter sample guide of how to write your representative, and basically goes into pretty much the same things that I mentioned here. Is, hey, you want to be specific, you want to give justification, you want to request a response. And so this one is addressing your representative, and this other one is addressing your senator. So this isn't like a, hey, let's fill out these cookie cutter forms and send it to them. No, write a real letter that comes from your heart on what right to repair means to you, why it's going to affect them. I cannot make a cookie cutter form that's going to tie directly into your area. And that's what you need to do, is you need to be specific of how it's going to affect their area. And that's the important thing here, is tying it in, making it real, you want to write it in a way that the intern that's reading it goes, wow, this is interesting. I should give it to my supervisor, who may push it all the way up to the senator or whatever. You want to make this interesting for the people reading it, so it gets set aside into the pile of, hey, this is a real letter, not this is one of those cookie cutter letters that people are just spamming into our mailbox. So that's really all I wanted to get into on my letter, give you some ideas of what to write, why I wrote what I wrote, and then you can form your own letter. And I highly encourage you to either write a letter or an email. Emails are perfectly acceptable. I have had letters work for me in the past, so that's why I'm writing a letter and not an email. But emails work just as good, most likely. It's just because of my previous experience is why I'm writing a letter. And there are APA guides on how to write an email. So let me see. Yep, here we go. Here is the APA guide for writing an email. So the emails are pretty similar. You have your email subject, and then Dear Senator or Representatives, kind of the same thing. And then you give your title and name at the end. And then the rest is just, fill in the information. So it really isn't that complicated of a process to write a letter or an email. I just wanted to cover it because a lot of people have never done it before. And you can also write your governor. Now, you wouldn't be writing your governor about this bill, but you could write your governor about putting a bill at the state level. And I believe that state level is probably easier to get past than federal level. However, I am going to support this this federal bill with all I got. This is not going to be the last time you hear about it on the channel. Okay, so before we end this video, I want to discuss this letter that Mr. Stephen Ryan received, who is a viewer of the channel and has actually had a couple of his emails and letters shown on Louis Rossman's channel. He's the one that emailed Hacko and got the response saying that, hey, this is proprietary information, we're not going to give it out to you. And then they made the whole video on Louis Rossman's channel. But yeah, so this is a letter he got from his representative, and he received this on September 8th. So this is not after the bill was introduced into the House of Representatives. So it says, thank you for contacting me about right to repair. It's an honor to represent the residents of the Southwest Washington. I appreciate you taking the time to share your thoughts with me. I certainly appreciate your concern, but the matter you wrote about is under the jurisdiction of the state law, not federal law. Your state legislators are the elected officials empowered to act on this issue. So, no, ma'am, you are completely incorrect on this. Well, yes, the state representatives should act on this and pass legislation at the state level. This is a federal issue, and it is currently in the House of Representatives, which I believe you are a member of the House of Representatives. I understand you may not be aware of everything going on, but I don't know. The president has been clear that this is an issue for him. The FTC has been clear that this is an issue and issued you a report. That report, Nixing the Fix, that I mentioned before, which I'll pull up here in just a moment, was a report to Congress from them. So this is a report she should have read already and been aware that right to repair was an issue at the federal level. And second, there's an executive order that covered this. Should have been aware of that. And third, it's a bill in the House right now. You should be aware of that. So, I don't know. I'm not trying to go in on them. I'm sure they have very important things going on. And of course, not every representative can be aware of every single bill going on, especially with some ticket items right now, like just trying to pass a budget. So I get it. However, you should have been at least aware, or your interns should have been aware. Somebody, whoever drafted this letter for her, should have done their due diligence in the draft before putting it on her desk to sign. So that way, yeah, it's kind of embarrassing in my opinion. But I'm not trying to put them on blast. I'm just being completely honest. That's embarrassing to have a bill that's a Democratic bill in the works in the House, and you say it's a state issue. I don't know. So let's take a look at Nixing the Fix. So I have it pulled up right here. It is a, what is this, 56? Yeah, 56 page, counting the front page here, letter written to report to Congress on repair. So right there in the title, it's Nixing the Fix, an FTC report to Congress on repair restrictions. It was done May 2021. So again, should have been aware of that. And it goes into good detail on a lot of issues. So I don't know. I do recommend reading over this, taking at least a gander at it to pick up some ideas of things to write to your legislator about, because they should be aware of at least something on here. They should have, glanced at it, sitting on the toilet. Hey, here's this report we just got from the FTC. Let's read it. I don't know. I don't know how it works as a representative. I'm not a politician, but I just wanted to cover this. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you got some ideas of what to write your legislators, and please take a half hour, an hour of your time, write a letter. Doesn't have to be perfect, run it through Grammarly so that way they don't look at it like you're an idiot, but it doesn't, if there's typos, if it doesn't make a ton of sense, that's okay. Just write a letter, get them interested in it, and nobody's going to get interest to your legislator more than you will, because you're a constituent of theirs. I am not. I cannot write letters to your congressman to make them interested. You are the only person that can do that. So thank you for watching the video, and I hope you feel empowered.